Christmas, one and all!
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Welcome to an Idiot Box, where I make stupidly long videos and all forms of media that can be seen on a screen. My name's Samantha, and today I'll be covering Black Mirror from its very first episode to its most recent. But before I start, I do have a couple of disclaimers for the video. Firstly, I will try to keep each section spoiler-free, but a few may pop in every now and again, so please do be warned. Number 2, any ratings I give to the episodes, I will pretty much just be based on my own personal enjoyment, so these are all just my personal opinions. If you have a different one, that is completely fine. In fact, let me know about them down in the comments. And last but not least, if you do enjoy my content, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more retrospectives every single month. Oh, and I now have a YouTube members option for anyone who wants to join for some little fun bonuses. But with that out of the way, let's talk about Black Mirror. So, Black Mirror is created by someone called Charlie Brooker, and if you're British, you probably knew that name even before Black Mirror. He worked on shows such as Brass Eye, well, one episode of Brass Eye, Screen Wipe, and of course Newswipe, which in my opinion is probably the best of the three I've mentioned. And he basically just wanted a new version of the Twilight Zone, something for the 21st century. And what a better way to do that than focus on what my entire channel's about. A screen. It's literally what we use daily, and especially by the 2010s, we had seen such a very fast rise in screen usage. I mean, we went from phones where you had to dial everything and press buttons to even do letters, all the way to the iPhone 6 was out by 2011, which is honestly quite insane. So there we go, Black Mirror. Channel 4 basically just commissioned 3 episodes even though he wanted 6, and the rest, let's just say, is history. Speaking of that history, let's get straight into it with Series 1. Series 1 of Black Mirror was released all the way back in 2011, containing only 3 episodes that ranged from about an hour all the way to about 70 minutes, and to be honest, it was quite a good idea on paper was this season, but Channel 4 just didn't seem overly interested. They really cut down. Brooker originally planned 6 episodes for Series 1, but by the end of it, he got 3, which says a lot about how much Channel 4 had faith in this project. But happily, they were proven quite wrong. The ratings for Series 1 were actually quite strong, especially for a Channel 4 series, and yeah, let's get straight into the actual episodes themselves, starting with the National Anthem is possibly one of the best pilot episodes ever made for TV. Now, it wasn't originally planned as a pilot episode, but I'm so glad it was, because this episode just completely sums up what Black Mirror is all about. So in this episode, the Princess Anne has been kidnapped by an unknown terrorist, and his only demand is that the Prime Minister has very close relations, let's just say, with a pig live on television until he... how else can I put this so that YouTube doesn't immediately just ban this entire video? He exterminates, and there we go. That is basically the premise of this episode, and it follows everyone's reaction to it. The press, the government themselves, and just general people trying to either avoid it or even some cases cheering it on. It's an amazing start for how screwed up this world is, and yeah, it's an amazing episode. 9 out of 10. Second up is 15 Million Merits, the first script actually written for the series, and is quite a drop in quality in my opinion from the first one. Now, this episode has a lot of fans, and I can completely understand why. Essentially, we're in some kind of dystopian future where technology has taken over extremely. Regular working people now just have to ride bikes all day to keep generators running, and if you get too fat to do that somehow, which is one of my issues, then you just become a cleaner. Now, like I said, these people are constantly on bikes. You can't do anything without money in this world. Even skipping an advert costs money. So I really don't understand how people can get so fat. They have to exercise to get money to get food. But if they don't, then how are they gaining this much weight? It's very confusing, and it's one of the many issues I have with this episode. Overall, I think it needs to be a bit longer to establish more things, but it's not bad, so 6 out of 10. It's decent. The entire history of You is one of the most praised episodes in Black Mirror history, and honestly, I have no idea why. So this episode is all about a couple who are going through a lot of marital issues, and they have a technology that allows them to rewind their own memories and what they visibly see, and to replay it. And this is an amazing concept. Basically, throughout the entire episode, the guy is analysing everything about his wife, deciding basically that he's cheating, and going on a massive rampage, including assaulting several people, to prove his point. And all of that I really do like. It's very interesting to see this man completely fall apart and become a horrifically toxic person. But the ending of it all falls apart because, spoiler alert, she was cheating. So what was the point in this episode? I don't understand. If the twist was that she wasn't cheating, it would have been a really good look. But by her actually cheating, it validates him. It proves him right for being a toxic, abusive arsehole. Yeah, I don't really like the message of this one. It's really horrific. So 2 out of 10. It's awful. And that's Series 1. Honestly, for me personally, I know a lot of people like Series 1, but I find it a massive mixed bag. It's not bad by any means, and you can definitely feel that there is something special about Series 1 of Black Mirror. We'd not really had any shows like this for a very long time. Anthologies are now very big once again, which I do enjoy, but back when Black Mirror returned, they were a dead genre. I honestly credit Black Mirror for bringing back the anthologies to the way that we have now. I mean, look at stuff like American Horror Story, which started about the same time. I think Black Mirror is credited, basically, for helping revive that genre along with American Horror Story. I mean, to cry out loud, with my channel, I've already covered some anthology stuff when it comes to films with VHS, which started the year after Black Mirror. And, yeah, I think there's definitely issues. There are many growing pains. As you saw from my ratings, I just really think this season gets worse as it goes along, but it's only 3 episodes. And a lot of the time, I just kind of count season 2 as part of season 1 anyway, because 3 episodes is a bit too short to call it a series, in my opinion. It's still enjoyable, don't get me wrong, and like I said, that pilot episode, like, it's so good. It's so screwed up in every possible way, though. The national anthem is disturbing with how accurate it is. And even 15 Million Merits, which I don't really like, has so many good aspects to it. I love a lot of the relationships in that episode. They're really interesting. And I wasn't even able to mention it in the actual thing because of time, but it's basically just taking the piss out of X Factor, which I'll always appreciate. And even though I really hate the entire history of You and don't get why it's so loved, the actual concept of it is really good. But thankfully, any issues I had with Series 1 were basically ironed out with Series 2 of Black Mirror was commissioned quite shortly after Series 1 finished airing. Despite Channel 4 being worried about the longevity of the show, with it being a different story each episode and no returning characters, they still decided to give it a second go, and commissioned 3 episodes along with a Christmas special later on down the line to round off this Channel 4 era of the show. Now, Season 2 still did quite well when it came to ratings, but was slightly less than Series 1, and that was basically all the proof that Channel 4 needed to cut the cord, and I think that's a shame. Obviously, it ended up being picked up by Netflix, since that's probably where most people know it from, including myself when I first started watching it, but I like a lot of the stuff to do with Series 2. It is a massive improvement, in my opinion. It basically fixes almost, emphasis on the almost, every issue that I had with Series 1. So let's get straight into it. Be Right Back is definitely the most emotional episode of the show so far, and is the first of the pseudo-romance episodes that would become a staple during the Netflix era. And wow, does this start off perfectly. So this episode follows a couple who have just recently found out that they're pregnant and expecting, but sadly the guy of the relationship dies in a car accident, and his girlfriend slash wife just isn't coping very well. And she basically gets an AI chatbot that she can talk to that emulates the way he spoke to him, and it completely goes out of hand. This episode was the first one of the show that made me feel genuinely emotional. The acting in this by Hayley Atwell is heartbreaking. There is no wonder that she became, well, Hayley Atwell. It is so emotional, it's so moving. That ending is shocking and breaks my heart every time. My only real issue of this episode is honestly I wish it was feature length, so 9 out of 10, it's amazing. White Bear is the most horror episode that the show has gone so far, and I honestly count it as the start of the once-a-year horror episodes. And it's probably the best one of all of them, if I'm being honest. White Bear is such a good story, and basically staples what becomes the Black Mirror thing, the twists. Now, we'd had twists in previous episodes that you weren't really expecting, but this episode, this is what solidified it and basically made every future episode have a twist. Essentially in it, we follow a girl who we won't name here, who basically wakes up in this post-apocalyptic world. The only thing she can see are a bunch of killers that are chasing after her, a weird signal which has brainwashed a ton of people, and average everyday people are now just running with their phones out recording carnage and murder. There is a twist, as I said, and it's so good. I can't say anything more about White Bear without spoiling it, so it's 10 out of 10. It is a go. The Waldo moment is the Marmite episode of this series, and I completely agree with that. I even view the entire thing itself as Marmite. Pretty much the first, 30 minutes, I think are really good, as strong as the first two episodes of this series. Basically looking at the way that we idealise mascots, everything from Ronald McDonald, from, McDonald's, all the way to just anything in general. Look at the Minions, for instance. There's no real Despicable Me franchise anymore, it's now just the Minions. And this episode takes that to the absolute extreme, with a character known as Waldo, who was kind of a kids' TV presenter, but was a bit naughty, becoming a politician. And it escalates so perfectly, kind of like the Trump thing that happened back in 2016, and sadly we're still going through. But the last 15 minutes just falls apart. It stops being about the mascotty stuff, becomes very overdramatic, and the ending bit is just horrific. So, 5 out of 10. It's very mixed. Last, but certainly not least, is White Christmas. Now, this isn't technically part of Series 2 as it's just a Christmas special, but I'll wrap it in here because it fits very well. Now, this is an anthology within an anthology, so I won't go into the mini-stories, but I will just mention the overarching one. Essentially, two guys are on some kind of scientific research thing, and they keep talking about different technologies that Jon Hamm's character has worked on, aka weird glasses, and a bunch of other stuff. It's quite interesting the way these two interact. It seems like Jon Hamm's character knows this other guy, but just isn't really saying how he knows, whilst Rafe Spall is really good in his role of just seeming like he has amnesia, but not. He knows where everything is in the house, he knows that Jon Hamm's meant to be there, but he can't figure out why. It has a really good mystery, and with the 3 little segments tying it all up, it's a solid story. Honestly, it's an 8 out of 10. It is great. And that's Series 2 of Black Mirror. Sadly, the end of the Channel 4 era, but don't worry, because Netflix comes around the corner and saves it for a time, depending on who you ask as a fan. Now, for me, Series 2 is just more of Series 1, but it really starts to understand what it's meant to be. While Series 1 I felt had a lot of growing pains, Series 2 seemed to pretty much solidify what it was. It was something shocking but emotional, and that is what Black Mirror is to me. It has moments of horror, it has moments of romance, even a couple of moments of comedy, but overall, it's all about technology and being depressing as shit. And as you saw from my actual rankings, I didn't think it went downhill as it went along. Like, White Bear is my favourite episode, and it's episode 2, and even though technically the last episode of the Waldo moment, not including the Christmas special, is my least favourite, it's only because of those last 5, 10, 15 minutes. It seems like they didn't really know how to end the story, so they just threw on a weird ending which basically ended the world for some reason. It was so strange, I really still don't get it to this day. But there is still a lot to love. All 4 concepts of this season are brilliant. The mini-stories that are in White Christmas are so interesting that honestly they could have been full-fledged episodes by themselves. It's so strange the way that they did it, but in the best way possible, the way that only really Black Mirror could do it. I mean, I know of no other anthology shows that have an anthology episode within an anthology show. Like, it's inception of anthologies. And it does it so well. Brooker should be very proud of how he did the second series, especially compared to the first. And even though Channel 4 were no longer interested, as I mentioned, Netflix were. And they wanted Black Mirror, and they wanted it bad. So they commissioned 12 episodes split over 2 series. So let's take a look at them now. Following on from White Christmas, Channel 4 kind of struggled with what to do with the show, and basically just started looking at like co-production deals and the like, but Netflix were the winners, eventually even buying essentially the rights to the franchise as far as I'm aware, and everything since has been Netflix, which, as you're gonna see, is both a positive and a negative. So yeah, Series 3, the first Netflix series, and a massive tonal shift for the entire show. Gone are a lot of the more darker storytelling throughout the entire series, and now it's broken up a little bit more. Plus, the episode number has been doubled, which is always a positive, allowing the team to be a lot more experimental, and like I said with the term, a lot weirder, but for me, that's probably for the best. So let's not waste any time and get into what is my personal favourite series, with Black Mirror Series 3. Nosedive is probably one of the strongest commentaries in the entire programme. It basically follows a character who's living in a world and everything is rated. For if you smile, you can get 5 stars, 4, 3, 2, 1, everything. Walking down the street, rated. Getting your taxes done, rated. Working at a coffee shop, rated. All those people must be so low because of Karens. And yeah, it's a really good look at the way that we do social media. I mean, even this YouTube channel to an extent, a like button, that's a 5 star. A dislike button, that's a 1 star. But all of it affects the algorithm. And that's what this episode looks into so perfectly. Dallas Bryce Howard is perfect casting for this episode. Her bubblegum sweetness and all the stuff to do with her friend's wedding really ties the concept in together. Honestly, it wouldn't have worked if we didn't have such a good story and good protagonists along with it. And yeah, this is a really solid start. The ending is really funny as well, which is good. Black Mirror finally doing humour. So yeah, 9 out of 10. It's amazing. Playtest to me always feels a bit like a spiritual successor to White Bear, being the second proper horror episode of the show. And since we have tiny Kurt Russell in it, I think that's also a big positive. This episode does really well at building tension. I'd say it's definitely the scariest Black Mirror episode so far. There's a lot of tension. Basically, this episode follows a guy who's just kind of bumming it around the UK at the moment, just to see what's really going on, and avoiding his mum, which is not a good thing because trauma, whoop, and ends up basically joining as essentially a playtester, thus the name of the episode, playtest, of a new virtual/augmented reality game, which brings your deepest, darkest fears to life. And it's got so many good moments. Honestly, the first, 40 minutes of this episode are 10 out of 10 amazing. But for me, personally, the ending completely falls flat. I think it's just too mean, and that's something that will sadly start becoming a trend. But it's still good, so 7 out of 10. Third up is Shut Up and Dance. Now, this goes back very heavily to the tone of the first two series, and I think that's for the best. We had a lot more bubblegum pop with the first episode, we had a lot more experimental horror with the second, so this one feels right alongside series 1 and 2. And this episode hurts every single time I watch it. So this one also has a massive twist, to the point where it recontextualizes the entire episode. The thing that a good twist does. But all I'll state for now is that we follow a lad, basically, who was caught choking the chicken, let's just put it that way, and he gets recorded by some online scammers / kind of blackmailers, and he has to do a bunch of tests of them along with a bunch of other people who've done dodgy things in order to please these blackmailers. I won't say anything more because the twist is so good and so well choreographed throughout the whole thing. It's a 10 out of 10. This episode is written perfectly. San Junipero is what I mentioned at the start of this season, where because of the extra episodes they could experiment a ton more. With this one not being really that dark, it's literally just a love story, but with a sci-fi premise. Basically, a bunch of elderly people who are coming to the ends of their lives can now go to a place known as San Junipero, where they kind of relive a lot of different decades, with this episode primarily set in the 80s, but we do see the 90s and 2000s as well, which is cool. And two people fall in love. That is the episode. Two women fall in love, something they weren't really able to do when they were younger due to a lot of the issues around the LGBT community and stuff like the 70s and 80s. And it's beautiful. I won't say anything more about the episode, but it is gorgeous. My genuine only criticism is this episode should have been feature length, not the sixth one. Because there is so much more they could do with this one, and I love it. I just never wanted it to end. 9 out of 10. Men Against Fire is the weak link of this series for me. Now, I will state that this episode has a lot of really good premises within it. The episode was originally entitled Inbound, and it was actually part of Series 1 all the way back then, but was massively reworked over the next 5 years, and ended up releasing to probably the most lukewarm response of the entire series. So throughout the episode, we follow a character called Stripe, who works for the military, and is going against these kind of mutated monsters. It's an interesting concept, I do like it, and once again there's a massive twist which recontextualises everything, and it does a really good job at it. My main issue honestly falls to the characterisation. While Shut Up and Dance, every character was interesting, you wanted to know more, everyone in this one is just generic military. None of them are that interesting, and there's some weird dreamy stuff, especially when it comes to the ending, that I just don't get. I understand what it's meant to be, but it's just kind of crap. So, 5 out of 10, it's very mixed. Last up for Series 3, we have Hated in the Nation, which, wow, this episode is so good. It is very much like a police drama, very British, but with a sci-fi twist. And my god, the main two characters that we follow in this story should have gotten their own spin-off show. They are perfectly written for a cop show. One of them being like the new rookie that's overly excited, and then you've got the older detective who's miserable, and they're basically investigating a bunch of murders where people on an Twitter-styled app are saying death to, and then unpopular celebrity who's got cancelled that day, and that celebrity then gets murdered. It's a really cool murder mystery, and I really do enjoy it. I will state there are certain parts that feel a bit padded. I think this could have been about 10-20 minutes shorter than it is, since this is the first episode of Black Mirror to be 90 minutes. And that should have gone to San Junipero. But yeah, it's still really good. The mystery and the ending especially are awesome. It's just a bit too long, so 9 out of 10. It's amazing. And that's Series 3. As you saw then from my rankings, I like a lot of these episodes. There's only Men Against Fire, which I think is honestly kind of disappointing. It's not bad by any means, but you could almost feel that it's been rewritten over and over again for 5 years. It's still not bad though, and especially when you compare it to the rest of this series, it makes it look worse than it is. I mean, for crying out loud, Shut Up and Dance has the most shocking twist I think has ever been put on TV, because the first time I watched it, I had no idea. I'd never even watched Black Mirror. It was my first ever episode of the show. And a bunch of my friends were showing me the show. And I was quite enjoying Shut Up and Dance. It was very much my kind of thing. Kind of like sci-fi-esque drama. Like, you could feel the sci-fi stuff, even though it's pretty, like, solidly set in 2016, which was nice. And then the twist happened. And literally all my friends looked at me. And I just had my mouth absolutely agape. I could not believe what I was seeing. But then I thought back throughout the episode and I'm like, oh my god, I'm an actual idiot. And yeah, and that's why I gave it the 10. And even the others, I mean, Hate Divination, it's amazing. Fight me. I love San Junipero. It makes me cry nearly every single time. Nosedive is miserable, but in the best possible way. Honestly feels like a Melanie Martinez song brought to life. Other massive bubblegum pop, but with a truly depressing feeling. And even with playtest, because I hate the ending, I genuinely hate it, but the first 40 minutes are as good as the 3 episodes I just listed there. It's such a solid series, and you could almost feel that so many of these were written between series 2 and 3, and Charlie was just refining them over and over again to get to this point. It's an amazing season, and let's basically look at the second half of it, because seasons 3 and 4 kind of blend together. Series 4 is basically just Series 3, but the B-style stories. Apart from one. I will emphasise that very aggressively. I think if Men Against Fire and the first episode of this series were swapped, Season 3 would be counted as one of the best seasons in all of television for any genres. And there's a reason behind it. So as I said, that Series 3 and 4 were basically produced around the same time. It was really cool, and with Series 3, they experimented a ton. But Series 4 literally did the Hold My Beer meme, and just experimented even more. We once again have another anthology episode within the anthology show, and even Penn, as in Penn and Teller, helped write it, which is really cool. There's so much experimentation this season when it comes to the tones of the episodes. We have a black and white episode. We have an episode that's nearly completely, like, washed out. We have the brightest coloured episode in the entire show. It's just really cool. So let's get straight into Series 4. USS Callister is exactly what I meant at the start of reviewing Series 4. This is the one that should have been part of Series 3. It is just perfect. And that's coming from someone who doesn't really like Star Trek. Please don't hate me, Trekkies. I've just never had the time to get into it because there's like 500 goddamn seasons in total with all the little, like, side spin-offs. And with the bits I have seen of Star Trek, especially classic Star Trek, the couple of episodes, this nails it perfectly. The tone of this episode, where basically this nerdy guy has made Starfield before Bethesda did, and he's made his own, essentially, like I said, Star Trek mod, and it is perfect. I love how dark this episode also gets. It looks massive and bubblegum pop, just like Nosedive did, but my god, does the darker aspects of this episode shine. Callister is perfect. I am so excited for the sequel in like 4 days. 10 out of 10. Perfect. Next up is Archangel. Now, this episode I think is a bit overhated online. It was directed by Jodie Foster, as in that Jodie Foster, and she does a really good job throughout this entire episode. We basically follow a mum who's become a helicopter parent due to an issue with her kid when she was younger, and puts this experimental Archangel device into her kid so she can view everything through her daughter's eyes. This also includes stuff like seeing her bloods, making sure that everything's okay when it comes to medical issues, and it's a really cool concept and something amazing that is tackled in this episode. I think it does a really good job looking at the helicopter parenting, especially as the kid gets older and older, and becomes disassociated with violence since it's all filtered out. But the ending of this story just stops. There's no real conclusion. You feel it's starting to build up more and more, and then it just ends. There's no real conclusion, there's no satisfying end. It's a bit of a mess, so 6 out of 10, because it is still decent. Crocodile is another episode which is massively overhated. I will agree that the title of this episode, Crocodile, does not make any sense at all, since the original concept for this episode is completely different to how it ended up, and Crocodile is basically just a leftover of that original concept. In this one, we follow a character who, along with a former partner of hers, accidentally murdered someone when they were younger. And as they've gotten older, one of them's grown up to become this basically big, cool version of themselves, like a big tech girl, whilst the other one's become a crazy hippie and now wants to tell everyone about what they did. She ends up having to kill him because of this, and we get some awesome technology where, at the same time, a guy gets hit by a pizza truck. And this woman basically goes into people's memories to see what happened. And obviously the main girl can't let that happen. It's a really awesome concept. It's just the ending is very mean for no reason. So 7 out of 10. It is really good. I wasn't joking with my little joke for this part. Hang the DJ is just San Junipero again, but with straight people. And it's still awesome. I'm just going to state that now. It is very similar in its kind of pacing and tone when it comes to San Junipero, but Hang the DJ does have a lot of differences. With this one, the main characters are basically in this weird town that's like blocked off by giant walls, and they have to basically live for days every single day until they find their perfect one. They get this little thing called Pod, which tells them how long they're going to be in a relationship with this person, and if they like that person or not, that's how long they have to stay. Even if they love them with all their hearts, if it says 12 hours, that's all they're getting. And if they despise them and it says 5 years, that's what they're getting. It's a really cool concept and a good way to do another kind of romantic thing, but it does feel too similar to San Junipero despite an amazing ending. 8 out of 10 though, it's still great. Metalhead really is just the expression style over substance. Now, the story of this one is that we're in a post-apocalyptic world where the kind of robot dogs that we see all the time on the internet getting kicked about because why not, have taken over the world and massacred nearly everyone. In this story, we do follow a team trying to get some both necessary supplies and unnecessary supplies for a group that they're with, and everything goes to absolute shit. Now, this episode is shot completely in black and white, and it wasn't just like they took the colour out afterwards, it was specifically shot in black and white, which I will always give credit for. This episode is visually gorgeous. I think it's the best looking episode of the entire show even to date, and I can't take that away from it. But when it comes to a plot, there really isn't one. It's just 40 minutes of someone surviving, and then a spoiler alert, but they die at the end anyway, all for a teddy bear. It's really cool, I like the aspects of it, but it is so unfinished. It feels like it needs to be longer. So 4 out of 10, because it's kind of meh. Last up is Black Museum, and yes, that is Shuri. We love ourselves a Black Panther girl in this, so yeah, automatically, this episode can only get a 5 at the absolute lowest. And it's honestly still quite a good episode. It's once again an anthology like White Christmas, and each of these stories is really good. The first one especially, I will state, the one written by Penn from Penn and Teller, is so good. Honestly, that should have been its own entire episode. It was that good and so screwed up. The other two stories are still really good. I really enjoy them, especially when it comes to the girl living in the bear. I think it's a good way to look at stuff like comatose people and toxic relationships. And the overarching story is also really good. I really enjoy it. My main issue with this episode is honestly that it drags on a little too long. I think it could have been about 10 minutes shorter, and even though I do like the overarching stuff, it seems to tie up way too quickly. Still, 8 out of 10, it's great. And that's Series 4. It's definitely a step down, as you could see from my overall rankings of the season, but I still think it's quite solid. Like I said, it feels like a lot of B-side ideas from Series 3 which weren't worked out in time for it, and some of which work exceptionally well, such as the USS Callister, some that work very well, such as Hang the DJ and Black Museum, and others which, while still having a lot of promise, can fall a bit flat, such as the ending of Crocodile. Now, I didn't really go into too much detail for that one because I didn't want to spoil it, but do you know what? Screw it. Basically, at the end of the episode, the main character kills a baby, and that's already dark enough, but I could cope with that as Black Mirror to cover up all the stuff, but then they find out the baby was blind, so they wouldn't even be able to get the kid's memories, and it's just like, that's just too mean. I hate that. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, that's just mean for no fucking reason. Please don't. And yeah, like I said, Series 4 is weird. A lot of people do overhate this series. I've heard people say Archangel is one of the worst things they've ever seen, and I'm just like, bro, are you okay? You evidently haven't seen Sleepaway Camp 4. But yeah, it's overhated, but it's still not perfect. I'll still state, in my personal opinion, it's leagues above Series 1, especially when it comes to the overall quality. And the USS Callister, I mean, there's a reason it's getting a goddamn sequel this year. I never thought any of these episodes would get sequels, but here we are. And yeah, I don't hate this season as much as other people. I love the experimentation, I love how much new things it tries to do, even if it does fall a little bit flat. But speaking of experimentation, if you thought Series 4 started to experiment, boy oh boy, just wait till you see what happens next. Series 5 is by far the most experimental season of Black Mirror to date, in all honesty. It tries so much new, and in a lot of people's opinions, mine included, kind of makes it the weakest series of the entire show. I do appreciate how much they tried to change them. I mean, this season's only 4 stories, and that's only if you include Bandersnatch, which I'll get to, and personally I do. It was filmed around the same time. It was originally planned to be officially part of Series 5, so Bandersnatch counts for me. And yeah, let's just say that if you thought Series 3 and 4 started to get a lot more experimental, they're nothing compared to this. Each story in Series 5, despite only being 4 of them, are completely different. Honestly, if you didn't watch them in order, you probably wouldn't even know that they're from the same series. They are that drastically different. But let's get straight into it, though, with our first Bandersnatch. So Bandersnatch is our first and currently only movie in the Black Mirror universe, and it's an interactive film, which are controversial from the get-go, for if they're films or if they're video games. Now, there is actually a very interesting and long history when it comes to interactive movies, but I'm not really going to look into that. All you need to really know is that it started kind of in the 60s, where a guy would be there live when it comes to what the audience wanted in the cinema, and he'd ask them to vote on what they should do or what they shouldn't do. If you've seen that Futurama episode where it's all my circuits for movie, it's the same kind of gist. But since it's a movie, I will be talking about it over the course of 2 minutes instead of 1, and in my opinion, does this experiment work? Yes, I think Bandersnatch works perfectly, especially for the story it needs to tell. Essentially, we follow this young lad called Stefan back in 1984 as he's developing a very old computer game which uses choices and paths. And that is what this special does. You have to make choices and you have to go down paths. It's the perfect analogy for this storyline, and it works so well. There are definitely some paths that I don't think were finished enough. I think some of them just sort of end without much fanfare. But some other ones, especially when it comes to the more comedic ones, like in The Office, which is an official ending that I find hilarious, they're really good. They're just so funny. There's so many interesting aspects to do with Bandersnatch. On your first time, kind of playing/watching it, you will not be able to see everything. Even on your second or even third time, you're probably still missing a good couple of things, which makes it cool. And from what we can see from the trailer for Series 7, 2 of the characters from this episode are even coming back for the new series. So, yeah, it's solid. It definitely needs a bit more work, but overall, it's great. 8 out of 10. Then we have Striking Vipers, continuing the video game stylings of Bandersnatch, but doing it in all the worst ways possible. Honestly, this episode to me is pretty much a disaster from start to finish. It's a massive shame as well, because there's two incredible actors in the lead role. Anthony Mackie, who is literally Captain America right now, and Yahya Abdul, who is one of my favourite actors in recent years. I mean, to cry out loud, the man's now Candyman. And it just doesn't work. Essentially, the story focuses on the two of them being very close friends when they were younger, but slightly drifting apart as they got older. And they've got a brand new VR-styled video game which uses cookies, and it sticks it onto your head, and you feel what the characters feel. And they start shagging. There's so many things that they could go down the direction of, like LGBT-related stuff. Are they gay? Are they straight? Are they trans? Are they not? But it barely touches on it. And it's shit, to be honest, so 3 out of 10, it's bad. So, for Smithereens, I just need to get this out of the way very quickly. This episode has nothing to say. This episode is basically just social media bad, and that's it. Whilst all other Black Mirror episodes will usually have a very good theme and a very good message, this one's pretty bland, to be honest. The message falls apart and the ending kind of, takes away the message when it comes to the companies. But as a story itself, following a guy who's gone absolutely mad from the death of his wife, which he blames on a social media company, to the point he kidnaps an intern, and then it's a whole hostage situation for like 70 minutes where the government gets involved, the FBI gets involved, the company itself gets it. Like, it's so cool. I love the structure of this episode. It's really good. It's really tense. The main performances are breathtaking. I just wish that they nailed the actual theme of the episode, because by the end, it does fall apart a bit. But still, it's the most enjoyable this series gets, so 7 out of 10. And speaking of messy, last but not least, well, by not much, I will state, we have Rachel, Jack and Ashley 2, where the first half is a Black Mirror episode, focusing on the depressing aspects of life and technology. Stuff like an evil aunt who wants to steal your music and knock you in a coma so she can use evil technology to create infinite albums while she's knocked out. We have the usual family drama of like a dead mum, like two sisters that don't really get along, and a little robot Ashley. Like, it's really cool, it's really interesting. And then the second half turns into a comedy heist film. And it genuinely just feels like two completely different stories were just smashed together in the middle. If you've ever watched like the first Venom movie and it suddenly changes from being horror-esque to comedy, it's like that, but without the 5-minute transition scene. It just happens in the next scene and it's an absolute mess, but it is enjoyable. So 4 out of 10, I guess. But yeah, that's all they wrote for Series 5, and as you saw from my rankings, this is the worst season, and that includes Series 1. Series 5 seemed like it really wanted to try new things, but kind of got stuck on itself. Bandersnatch was an amazing idea, and in my opinion, a brilliant execution. It just needed that little bit more work. Striking Vipers seemed to set up a lot of things that could exploring, but it just doesn't. It just gives up. And when it comes to Smithereens, that one was just a really good thriller that happened to be a Black Mirror episode, but didn't really feel like one, in all honesty. And finally, Rachel, Jack and Ashley 2 was just a mess, not really knowing what tone to go for, not knowing what style it went for. And yeah, that kind of sums up Series 5 in a nutshell, not really knowing what to do. The whole thing just feels rushed, despite the fact that it had a 2-year gap between seasons, one of the longest for the show, until, Series 5 to 6, which we'll get to. And yeah, even though I really hate the entire history of You, and I do think it is worse than any episodes in this series, I'd still rather watch the entirety of Series 1 than the entirety of Series 5 if I had to choose. It just really disappoints, especially after how amazing Series 3 was and how enjoyable Series 4 was. The third attempt by Netflix didn't really land. And for a lot of fans, this was kind of the start of the end when it came to Black Mirror. I disagree. I still think Series 5 has its high points like Bandersnatch and Smithereens, but you could definitely feel that having just one writer write basically every single episode with Charlie Brooker, the only one he didn't write was The Entire History of You, it's starting to wane a little bit. So there was a 4-year gap between seasons, and eventually we got... Series 6 almost seems to double down on Series 5's experimentation, but in my opinion does it much better, and also, once again, worse in some aspects. So, thankfully, the 3-episode series was just a one-off with Series 5, once again if you don't include Bandersnatch, but this series we got 5 stories. I would have wished for 6, but do you know what? I'm fine with 5. 5 will do. Happy with that. Especially with the lengths of some of these episodes. The 2 of them are basically movies, I'm not gonna lie. And I think there's definitely an improvement here. We try a lot more with genres rather than just being weird. It feels a lot more close to Series 3 and 4 than it does to Series 5, which is definitely a positive. Although I will say that I do think when it came to the experimentation, with one specific episode, they took it way too far. And with another episode, they did it perfectly, but in a strange way. So let's get straight in to Series 6. Journey's Awful is the most comedy this show has ever been, and in all honesty probably ever will be. It's basically 55 minutes of a comedy film, and in my opinion, it nails it. Now, I see a lot of people saying that this doesn't feel like a Black Mirror episode due to the levels of comedy, which I can understand, but it's still very technology bad, it's still very AI and sci-fi focused, so for me, this does still feel like a Black Mirror episode. And the story itself of a woman who literally sees her day that she just had as a TV show, that scene is incredible, and the rest of it that comes afterwards is so good. I quote this episode more than any other episode of Black Mirror. Myself and my partner and my housemate, we reference it all the time, especially when it comes to the Salma Hayek quotes. They're just so good. Yeah, this episode's a 10 out of 10. I get why people dislike it, but for me, it's perfect. Up next is Lock Henry, this time pointing a lot of blame at stuff like documentaries, which can sometimes be a little bit intrusive and can be very exploitative. Even myself, I am definitely guilty of this. I watch a lot of documentaries. I love a documentary, especially a murder doc, and this episode points fun at me, and you know what? It's kind of right too. Throughout this story, we're following a group of, well, very amateur, let's just say, documentary makers, and they're doing their first one originally on a coin collector, but then quickly realise, what about the actual murders that happened in this town, where a sadistic serial killer kidnaps tourists and killed them in his basement? And so much is unravelled through this. It is paced like a documentary, which I think really does wonders. The ending is a shocking twist, but my main issue, honestly, is that it feels like it just ends so quickly. I wanted more out of it, so it's an 8 out of 10. It's still great. Third is Beyond the Sea. Now, I will state the first half of this story is amazing. Essentially, it follows 2 astronauts in space who have robot duplicates that they can kind of transfer their consciousness in through this weird VR thing and basically live on Earth and then only need to use a space station when it needs repairs. But very early on in the episode, which is why I'm going to spoil it, one of their families is murdered along with their robot duplicate, leaving them in space 24/7 in a tiny little place that wasn't designed for someone to be in it 24/7. And, of course, insanity ensues. There's a lot of interesting aspects to this episode that I think it nails, but the ending falls completely apart. It just ends. There's no real resolution. Throughout the whole, 80 minutes, we are building up this amazing levels of tension and drama, and the payoff is just an anticlimax, which I genuinely despise. So, 5 out of 10. It's very mixed. Now it's time for Maisie Day, and this is the episode I was referencing at the intro. This one doesn't work. So, this episode is still labelled as a Black Mirror episode, unlike the next one we're going to talk about. And, spoiler alert, this is a werewolf movie that's just 40 minutes long, and it's not even that good of a werewolf movie. The ending is just mean for the sake of being mean. The entire diner scene is just really horrible in not even the slightest fun way. And I watch Terrifier movies for fun, but this felt meaner. Nothing really builds on this episode. There's some interesting commentary on the paparazzi at the start of it, but honestly, by the end, they've basically just thrown that entire thing out. It's kind of weird the way they did it. This episode just isn't Black Mirror at all. It's a pretty crap werewolf movie. It has some moments of being entertaining, but overall, it's a 3 out of 10, because it is quite bad. Demon 79, however, is exactly how they should have done the previous one. It's not even a Black Mirror episode, and it fully knows it. It doesn't even say it's a Black Mirror episode. We don't have a normal cracked screen, and it even says Black Mirror presents a Red Mirror movie. And that's what this is. It is an 80-minute long horror film. Horror comedy, really. Following this young Indian girl who has recently moved to the UK, and there's a lot of racism, because we're now in the 1970s. And yeah, that's pretty much the premise. She ends up meeting this demon called Garth, who ends up looking like Boney M, the people who did Goddamn Rasputin, and it's just so fun. This episode is so funny, and yet so dark. The kills themselves that happen in this, since it's a pseudo-slasher, are really brutal and played perfectly. The actress who plays the main girl is incredibly talented. This is a 10 out of 10, and I know it's going to be controversial, but it's perfect to me. And that's Series 6, the weirdest series I will say that this show has ever gone. We basically had 3 Black Mirror episodes, and then we had 2 non-Black Mirror episodes. And as you saw from my rankings, these both worked and didn't. So, yes, I did put Demon 79 at the top because I just genuinely love this episode. It is so entertaining to me. It's just like a 70-minute grindhouse movie, but with a Black Mirror budget. What's not to love? And even though I know Jonah's Awful has a lot of its critics, I personally think it nailed exactly what it wanted to. The main issue, honestly, with this season comes with the middle portion. Now, I do enjoy Lock Henry, but it does sort of just end abruptly. Maisie Day is just a disaster from start to finish, in all honesty. After the first 5 minutes, which are quite interesting, everything else just doesn't work anymore. And the most Black Mirror-feeling episode with Beyond the Sea is just a mess. Like I said, the first half fits incredible. The second half of it has so much tension building up throughout the whole thing. And it just ends. It feels like they generally didn't know what to do with the ending. So they just cut out the final scene and went, there you go, that's the episode/movie. Have fun. And yeah, this season, as much as I do enjoy it a lot more than Series 5, and even to some extent Series 4, it's still not the best. Like, when you compare it to the massive quality of Series 2 and 3, you can almost feel that the 4-year gap between Series 5 and 6 due to Charlie Brooker not feeling Black Mirror was necessary with all the stuff going on in the world during COVID, it kind of sucks, but it's still not bad. I enjoy it for what it is, and it's trying new things. Hopefully Series 7 won't just default to bland, and I have hopes. But there we are, after like 45 to 50 minutes of just constant recording, we have Black Mirror completed for now. Like I said, in literally 5 days' time, we're getting the new series, and I could not be more excited, because this show, despite its many, many flaws, as with basically any anthology show, is one of the best, in my opinion. Yes, it may have some really crap episodes, in my opinion, and some downright awful ones, but we also get perfect gems. Stuff like White Bear, which is still to this day one of my favourite episodes of television ever made, Shut Up and Dance, the USS Callister, and even my more controversial likes, such as Jonas Arthur and Demon 79, I am so glad they exist. And you know what? If stuff like Striking Vipers and Maisie Day has to exist for them to exist, I am okay with that. And that's the beauty of Black Mirror. Basically, everything that I've said today when it comes to this little retrospective look through can be completely different to anyone else's. Some people absolutely love Striking Vipers. I don't personally get why, but I am so glad they can, and that's why anthologies and Black Mirror are so good. Everyone has a different takeaway. Like I stated with Series 1, the entire history of you is one of the highest praised episodes on IMDb and across general fan bases. And I am so glad people enjoy it. I despise it. It's my least favourite episode of the entire show. But that's, like I said, the beauty of Black Mirror. It's whatever you personally want from the show. It's so varied. It constantly tries new things. It never feels overly repetitive. And that's why it's so good. I cannot wait for Series 7. I am so excited for USS Callister Into Infinity. And even the pseudo Bandersnatch sequel, which I did not expect to see Colin return for, I'm excited for that too. I'm also excited for, obviously, the 4 standalone stories, but those two especially, because I've waited so long for Black Mirror to have sequels, dude, all the way in 2016 when I first watched Show Up and Dance. But yeah, that's it for Black Mirror for now. Obviously, I will kind of update this video at some point, probably when Series 8 comes out. But until then, I'll probably just put like a comment at the bottom of this video, like a tagged comment, and just put something along the lines of my quick feelings about each episode and a number to go with them. But until then, that's it for Black Mirror. I hope you all enjoy. I hope you all are really excited for Series 7 like I am. And I will see you next month with my video covering all of the Doctor Who spin-offs. And no, that's not a joke. I'm redoing the Sarah Jane and Torchwood ones as well. So I'll see you then. Toodles!